Let's continue with the question 2.4. It's about genetics. We know that many students find challenges with genetics. Question 2.4 from National Senior Certificate 2022, NCS 2022. The diagram below shows the inheritance of flower color in snapdragon plants. The two alleles controlling the flower color are red and white. It means that because the two alleles are capital letter, this is a capital letter, and also this is a capital letter, it means that both of them are dominant. So if both of them are dominant, here it's showing us that you have a dominant red crossing with white, and it gives you pink. When you have red and you have white, we produce pink. So pink is neither red nor white, but is an intermediate between the two. So the type of dominance which is there, the moment you get an intermediate, neither of the parent color produced in the offspring, it means that that kind of dominance is called incomplete. It means that red is neither dominant over white and white is neither dominant over red. An example is different presidents of different countries. When they sit on one table, all of them, they will talk about issues affecting them equally. So it means that neither of the president of country A nor the president of country B is dominant over the other. Why? Both of them or all of them are presidents. So neither red nor white is dominant over the other. So when they combine, they produce an intermediate. So let's go to the questions and we see. They are saying that state the type of dominance shown by the snapdragon plants. So we have seen that it is incomplete dominance. If it was complete, then we would have got either red or white in the offsprings, or both red. Some of the organisms are red and some of them are white. That is complete. If it was codominance, we would have got a mixture of red and white. But now we get an intermediate, therefore it is incomplete dominance. Give a reason for your answer. The answer, we have explained it, that you produce an intermediate, or an intermediate color was produced. A gardener crossed two pink flowers. Use the genetic cross to show the ratio that is expected of when you cross two pink flowers. So it means that if both of them are dominant, definitely this is going to be capital R, capital W, capital W. Yes, they produce one gamete from this side and one gamete from that side. So this one is going to produce a capital R. This one is going to produce a capital W. So it means that this crosses with this, you produce this. And RW is an intermediate of red and white, which is pink. So it means that when you're talking about the genotype of pink, we have to use this. So what are you supposed to write? Okay. We are saying that now, the first thing you need to do is you say, because it is a second generation we are crossing, therefore it is advisable to use P2. So it's going to be P2. You tell us the P means parent. So P2, parent 2, because we have already parent 1. So now pink and pink, it means that that's P2. Yes, if it's a second generation, we use P2. P2, yes, we can say F2, second Fourier generation. We mark this as ones, like, so we give you one tick there. So don't forget, if you write P2 or P1, F1, it must be, yes, it must be P2, F2, P1, F1. If you write one, you don't write the other one, then you get it wrong. For example, P2 and don't write F2, you don't get a tick. So now P2, you tell us the phenotype. The phenotype is pink. We cross it with another pink flower. The X must be like this. It must not be like this. No, the X must be like this. Then you go to genotype. What's the genotype? We have seen the genotype here. That is capital W, capital R, or capital R, capital W. Therefore, we're going to have to say here, it is capital R, capital W, cross with capital R, capital W. Now, these must separate under meiosis. So you write the word meiosis. So meiosis, you form the gametes, capital R, capital W. Here, capital R, capital W. So we call these ones gametes. Gametes, don't leave these gametes naked. In most cases, I always tell my students not to leave these gametes naked. They're not at the beach. All right. We circle them. We circle them. We circle them. Even if you don't circle them, still you get a tick. But I prefer to circle them. Why? So that we can differentiate them from the genotype. And always know that there must be a space between these two gametes. Don't combine them, because when you combine them, then it will look like it is a genotype. There must be spaces there. All right. Now these gametes, they're supposed to fertilize each other. Don't use the word fission. We won't give you a tick. Fertilization. Fertilization, when fertilization occurs, you can use a Punnett square, or you can use crosses. Since it is a monohybrid cross, you can use crosses. For example, this goes with that. So I'm going to have capital R, capital R, and now this with that. So it's going to be capital R, capital W. Now this with that is going to be capital R, capital W. Then this with that. So it's going to be capital W, capital W. Yes. So this is what called fertilization. So these are the offsprings of the parents. So F1 offsprings. What are they? They said snapdragon. It means that those are the offsprings or the snapdragons. But what was the question? The question is saying, use the genetic cross to show the ratio of the expected phenotype in the offspring. So we are looking for the ratio of offspring. Okay, let's look at the ratio of the offspring. Now, capital R, it is red. So I have red, How many are they? It's 1, comma. I have capital R, capital W. It is pink. Capital R, capital W is pink. So I have 2 pink. And then now I have capital W, capital W. It's white. I have 1 white. So basically I have 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. So that is it. So now when you are looking for a mark, when we mark, we are looking for ticks, and then sometimes we put what called a compulsory mark. So in case we come here, we do this, we do, yes, this and that, we give you a tick. Phenotype, we give you a tick, it must have a cross. Genotype, we give you a tick, it must have a cross here. If it doesn't have a cross, the tick might not be given to you. So we come to the gametes, we give you a tick, and then we have for crossing and you get the offsprings, we give you a tick. So because the question is saying give the ratio, so this one might be a compulsory mark. It might be a compulsory mark. So we give a tick, but we put the word C there, which means that it's compulsory. There is 1 mark short, which is meiosis and fertilization. Give a tick. So how many marks are there? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then in most cases, we give you 6 marks. And also sometimes cross, we can give you a tick there. So maybe we can say that this question is 6 marks. But how do we count? When you are counting, first count this. However much you get all of them, like you have all of this. Without this now, for this case, you won't get 6. You have to be with all of them. You have to be with all of them plus this. Or you have to be with this plus another 5 so that we make them to be 6. So that's how we mark the genetic cross. This question, it is 2022 Department of Basic Education, NCS. Another question is about evolution. Here they're saying that diagram A and B show the ventral, that is the bottom side of the skull, skulls of 2 organisms. The diagrams are not drawn to scale. It means that they are not, that's not their size. So now asking, which diagram represents the skull of bipedal organism? Let me first explain the word skull. Some people, they confuse the word skull and cranium. Cranium is where the brain goes. The skull involves even the jaws. So when you are meaning where the brain goes, please don't use the word skull, use the word cranium. So skull is the whole thing, the head, including the jaws, the teeth, and everything. But when you talk about cranium, please, we are talking about where the brain goes. All right. Now, which diagram represents the skull of bipedal? Bipedal, it means that organism is walking on 2 limbs. If the organism is walking on 2 limbs, it means that what shows we have 3 factors which you can identify whether the organism is walking on 2 limbs or not. The first one is the position of foramen and magnum. The second one is the shape of the spine, if it is S shape or C shape. S shape, it means that it allows flexibility for the organism, so therefore it is bipedal. And then C shape, the flexibility is not there, therefore it works on 4 limbs, quadrupedal. So the pelvic girdle for the case of bipedal must be short and wider to support the upper weight and allow easy movement. The other one, it must be small and narrow. Then foramen magnum for the bipedal organism, it must be in the forward position. That's how we want it, in the forward position. While the foramen magnum, it must be in the backward position for the case of the organism which works on 4 limbs. Why is it supposed to be in forward position? Forward position so that the spine can connect to the skull vertically. And then now the skull is going to face straight in front. Straight in front. Hence, the organism is going to walk on 2 limbs. So if you look at this, it's a little bit in the forward position. Don't say in the center. Center of what? No. Even this side can be center if I count from I measure from this side to this side. So it's going to become the center. So the center, we say in forward position. Well, this one is a little bit backward. So it is not in the forward position like this. So it is backward. So it means that this is a bipedal organism. This one is the quadrupedal organism. So they're saying, give one visible reason for your answer. So the answer here is B. If the answer is B there, therefore it means that give one reason. It's because the foramen magnum is in the forward position. So it is in the forward position. And then they're saying that tabulate 2 visible differences between the upper jaw. Now here, they're looking only and specifically the upper jaw. These jaws which you see. So don't talk about other parts. The upper jaw in diagrams A and B. When they say the word tabulate, that's a mark. The word tabulate, even you can see that is 5 marks. So when you draw a table, please make sure that you draw a correct table so that you get all the marks. So you write here, for example, skull A and then skull B, for example. Make sure that you close the table. You lose marks here. Ne? Don't just draw a T and then you write. No. If you draw a table, make sure that you put the heading. Ne? Please close. Don't just draw it like that. Please close the table. Close the table. It doesn't cost you anything for you to close the table so that you don't lose a mark. Be neat when you are writing. All right, now let's compare. Skull A, skull A. This is skull A, skull B. So number 1, they're saying the upper jaw. Let's look at these teeth. This and this. The canine here, they are big, meaning that they are well-developed canines. Here, the canines are less developed, meaning that they are small. Number 2, this one has a rectangular palate. Here, it has a U palate. Ne? It's like a C or a U palate. Here, it is rectangular palate. So, those are some of the differences you can talk about because they are talking about the jaws. So the palate here is rectangular palate. Here it is U shape, or the jaw, they are U-shaped, and then here, yes. And then they are saying that so you get 2 marks for the difference and 1 mark for the table. Then they're saying explain the significance of the shape of the spine. I talked about it. That is associated. Shape of the spine, significance of the shape of the spine that is associated with the skull B. What is skull B? Skull B, we say that it is walking on 2 limbs, and the shape, if you look at it, it is S shape. Because they didn't talk about which shape is it, then mentioning the shape could make you to earn a mark. Therefore, the shape is S shape. Yes, S shape. But what is this S shape for? It allows flexibility of the organism. So it makes the movement a little bit easier. Then, in most cases, things related to the graph, I only point out what is very important and the most likely questions which are likely to come when they bring a graph, because so that there is no cramming about the graph. So now, if they ask you to describe, when they say you're supposed to read the whole question, herbicides Herbicide is a chemical which kills a plant. Glyphosate is used to control the weeds in maize fields. The herbicide kills the weed, but it cannot kill the maize plant. The herbicide kills the weed, but it can also kill the maize plants. It has been found out that weed developed resistant to glyphosate treatment. Scientists carried out an investigation to determine the development of the glyphosate resistance in the weeds. The weeds were treated with the same concentration of the glyphosate each year from 2009 to 2016, and the percentage of the glyphosate resistant weed in the field was recorded every year. Okay. Results as follows. You see that glyphosate resistance, as the year goes on, the resistance increases, but 2015 and 2016 the resistance became constant. So now I'm saying describe the change in the glyphosate resistance over a period of year. It means that here, whenever they ask you to describe, you tell us what is happening, because if you draw this on the graph, not a bar graph, just a normal graph, you will see that it will be continuing, and then it forms something like this. So there is an increase from 2009 2015. There is a steady increase, yes, in the resistance of the weed over the herbicide, and then it remained constant between 2015 to 2016. So it remained constant. So when you say description, you tell us what you see. Don't give us the reason why there is that increase. That is description. When they ask you to explain, then you tell us why, you tell us that there is an increase, and then you give us a reason why that increase is there. So that is what we call explanation. But if they ask you to describe in science or in here, you just tell us the shape of the what of the graph, or the trend, how it moves. That's what they want. That's why you see that the marks, even they're not that a lot. Then they're saying that calculate the percentage increase in the glyphosate resistant weeds from 2010 to 2015. Show your working. Here, whenever they ask you to calculate the percentage increase, whenever they ask you to calculate for the percentage increase, this is what you are supposed to do. Percentage increase is equal to the final percentage increase is equal to the final figure, the final value minus the initial value over the initial value times 100. Yeah, that's it. So in this case, they say that from 2010 it is 20, and the 2010 is the initial value, and then to 2015 is 65. So I'm gonna say the percentage increase is gonna be equal to 65 minus 20, yes, divided by because the initial, it is 20, then times 100%. So the answer you get is gonna be the percentage increase. So that's how we calculate the percentage increase. So this is a rough thing how you can answer questions when you really sit in this paper, or any paper you're writing. You can really have no questions which are challenging. You are not going to see any new questions. All the questions you're gonna find in the paper are always the questions we ask you every day. Those are the questions you're gonna find in the paper. So there is no new questions, because we don't have any new science which has come in. So the curriculum remains unchanged for a period of years. So no new questions. Don't expect new questions in your exam. So please try and focus on, we have the same format of setting, so we cannot set outside the examination guideline. So scientists isolated the gene from for glyphosate resistance from the weed and used it to genetically modify the maize plant. Okay, explain the economic benefit of making the maize plant resistant to glyphosate. Because the glyphosate, now look, they are saying that herbicide is a herbicide which kills plant. Maize is also a plant, and then we use it to control weed in the maize plantation or the fields. So we have to make sure that this glyphosate cannot kill the maize. So the reason why they make this maize to be resistant to the glyphosate, so that when you apply the glyphosate cannot kill the maize what? The maize plant. So that is the idea behind it. So I'm not saying that this is the exact question which is going to come, but when they give you such question and you don't have any idea, you can go back in the passage, most especially these questions which are involving of reading, go back, read again, and then identify. Then they're saying that draw a bar graph. Before I go to the bar graph, can you identify the independent variable here? You can identify the independent variable here. So is the weed dependent on the herbicide, or the herbicide depend on the weed? It means that the weed will depend on the herbicide over a period of years. That's why here you see that over a period of time or years. That's why you see here that glyphosate resistance, the resistance will accumulate based on the period of years, meaning that this herbicide will be resisted based on the period the weed has stayed in contact with the herbicide. Therefore, the resistance depends on the contact time it has stayed with the herbicide. Hence, resistance becomes the dependent, and then the period of the contact becomes the independent. Okay, the bar graph. Now here, when you talk about the bar graph, you need to know the things we are looking for, so that when you go to the exam, you don't miss any question concerning about the bar graph, concerning about the graph. The first thing you need to know is the caption. Sometimes some teachers don't explain, they just mark, they put a T, they put a C, they put a S. They don't explain this to their students. But what does it mean? How do you answer this question so that you don't skip any mark? All right. So now they're saying that the bar graph should illustrate the results of investigation in the first 4 years. So, okay. Now, I'm not going to draw the actual graph, but I'm just going to talk about how you can draw this bar graph without stress. So years are always an independent variable, meaning that this is time. Time is always an independent variable. So independent is always on x-axis. Independent is always on the x-axis. And then the dependent one is always on the y-axis. I always tell my students that if you forget which one is on the x-axis, which one is on the y-axis, you just write here the word ID, your ID. Ne? Yes, ID, which means that you know the ID you are using. Independent, dependent. So this one is going to go on the x-axis. Then you here put ID, X, Y. So this one is going to go on x-axis. This one is going to go on the y-axis. So that's how you can remember the x-axis and the y-axis. So you just do this small box. I repeat. Ne? You say I, D, X, Y. So meaning that ID, independent variable on x-axis, dependent variable on y-axis. The first column on x-axis, the 2 or 3 or 1 goes to the y-axis. All right. Now, if you are drawing a bar graph, make sure that you draw a straight line. Don't mind about mine. Straight line. This is how we mark. You write a caption. Never forget about the caption. So we give you a tick for the caption. Then after that, you write the X, you write the Y here, you write the X axis here. But when you're putting the value here, for example, in this case, they are saying yeah, and then the percentage, the glyphosate resistant weed percentage. So it means that the resistance is gonna be here. Yes, the resistance is gonna be here, and then units, it is in percentage. Then the time is gonna be here, which is year, and then the years, they don't put anything. So if you just say time in years or just year, then it's fine. It means that now they're gonna give you another tick for labeling the what? Labeling the scale. Not labeling the scale, labeling the axis. So if you label the axis X, they can give you a tick, or Y, they also can give you a tick, or they can combine the two. Now, you go to, after that, you go to the intervals. Please don't start with a 0 here, yet you want to start. If you come back here on the, you'll see that is 10, 20, 32. Okay, this one, it's fine. You can start with a 0. But if it is starting from maybe 100, and then you go to 120, you'll find out that some people, they start here 0, 100, 120, 140, 160. So the difference between 0 and 100 is not the same as from 100 to 110. So if you start from 0, make sure that, and you say a difference of 10, it must be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. It must be consistent. If you don't do that, you're gonna lose a mark. And then now you're gonna have to draw your bar graphs. It must be straight. Don't forget that these bars must be straight. It must be straight. It must be straight. Ne? So now the distance between these bars, I'm saying this is a rough distance between this space and this space must be equal. It might not be exactly the same because you don't use a ruler when you're marking. No, but when you look at with your eyes, you see that these distances are the same. So it must be equal. These bars, the size must also be equal. So that we give you, if the scale, the interval is the same, we give you a mark for the scale. Yes. If you have drawn the bar graph, not a histogram whereby the bars are this connected to each other, then we give you correct type of the graph. We give you a correct type of the graph. We give you the mark for the caption. Then we give you a mark for labeling the axes. We talked about it. Then we give you a mark, maybe 3 of them. We give you a mark for plotting if you have plotted this correctly. So that's how we mark the bar graph or any other graph of any kind of nature. So basically, that's how we mark. Then the last question is natural selection and also out of Africa hypothesis. Still here, I'm not going to answer the actual, like the way it is here. I'm just giving you the ideas how you can answer these questions without stress. Because when you are bringing the question, we can bring it in a different version. Yes, we can bring it in a different version so that you don't lose those marks. So when you modify, where do you modify and how do you modify it? A population of lizards on the island A were well situated to feed mainly on insects. So it means that these were feeding on insects. Scientists moved the 5 adult pair of the lizards species to the neighboring islands. And they are saying the island A, island B, here they reproduced and a new population formed. They're saying the island B has large supply of plant with the fibrous leaves, and fewer insects. It means that now the food has become scarce. So this one is going to become a problem. Yes, exposure to this insect new environment may have caused the lizard to undergo evolution. Okay, the thing, 63 years later, scientists returned to the island B to conduct a further investigation on the lizard population there. They observed that the jaw size of the lizards had increased, and scientists also analyzed that the stomach content of the lizard found that it was mainly plant-based. They confirmed that the two populations still belong to the same species. They confirmed that the two populations still belong to the same species. Describe how scientists could confirm that they describe how scientists could confirm that there was a change in the jaw size between the lizards of island A and the lizards of island B. So the question might not come like this, explaining this, but it can come in a different version. So we shall go and then see exactly where we need to have the answers from. So basically, what the science could use to confirm or could confirm that there was a change in the jaw is, this is an obvious answer. It means that they had to measure the lizards on the island A and the lizards on island B, and they check whether the jaw size is the same, and they can compare the differences if the difference is there. Then explain how the large jaw of the lizards on island B would be structurally suited to eat the tough fibrous. Explain how the large jaw of the lizard on island B would be structurally suited to eat the tough fibrous leaves. Yeah, this could be about the jaws being strong, meaning that the muscles are strong enough, and also the teeth, so that they can have a strong bite, and then they can chew that food. It means that the muscles, to do that, it must be strong, so that the force of grip is high, and then they are able to chew this kind of what? Kind of food. How did the scientists determine that the two populations of the lizards, both on island, still belong to the same species? Don't forget that a population, a species, these are organisms that can interbreed to produce a fertile offspring. So if they have the two populations and they try to allow them interbreed, and they produce a fertile offspring, therefore they can confirm that these are still the same species. But if they cannot interbreed to produce a fertile offspring, then automatically they are not the same species. But if they could interbreed and produce a fertile offspring, therefore it means that they are still of the same species. Explain the possible effect that evolution of the lizard has on the biodiversity. Explain the possible effect that evolution of the lizards has on the biodiversity. Here, it could be, it can increase the biodiversity or it can reduce the biodiversity. So basically, those are the two ways. If it forms new species, then automatically it has increased the biodiversity. If it takes away an existing species, then forms another species, then it means that it is decreasing the biodiversity. However much it's creating, but it's decreasing because the other one is no longer existing. Or it could be three species, and then because now the food has come in a different angle, the three species, they modify into one species, or they modify and the other ones, they become extinct. They become extinct, meaning that now they have also decreased the biodiversity. Use the Darwin theory of natural selection to explain the evolution of lizards with large jaws. Use the Darwin theory of natural selection to explain the evolution of lizards with large jaws. Here, the principle is the same. The principle of natural selection, whatever you explain, use the same principle. The first point you have to talk about is variation. There was variation among, now you have to tell us what they gave you, among the lizards, those with large jaws and those with smaller jaws. Because the jaws are used to bite or to eat this tough food. Therefore, those lizards with big jaws, they could eat enough food, tough food. Therefore, they survived and reproduced in large number. Those with the small jaws, they could not eat enough food. Therefore, they died in large number. And this is called natural selection. Yeah, previously we are giving a tick on natural selection. This is called natural selection, but the chances are high that we no longer giving this marking point of this is called natural selection. But put it there, you never know that maybe we can review about it. This is called natural selection. So those with big jaws, they pass their genes to the next generation because they reproduce in large number. After many generations, all the lizards have big jaws. There is variation, I'm repeating, there is variation among the lizards. Those with, you tell us the variation. Those lizards with large jaws and those with the small jaws. Those with the large jaws, they could eat the tough food. Yes. And then they survived, they reproduced in large numbers, they passed their genes to the next generation. While those ones with the small jaws, they could not survive, they could not eat enough food, therefore they died in large numbers, and this is called natural selection. Those which survived, they passed their genes to the next generation, and after many generations, all the population of the lizards were made up of large jaws. That's how you can explain using Darwin's theory of natural selection to show how this evolution of large jaws came about. Lastly, on this paper, please, you should never go to the paper without knowing these questions. The out of Africa hypothesis, which states that modern humans originated from Africa and migrated to the rest of the world. Don't forget the word modern. However much they might not give it as a tick marking point, but in most cases, we criticize when the word modern is not there, because not all humans are modern. Homo habilis were humans. That's why you call it Homo, which means a man. Homo erectus were humans. That's why it's called Homo, is a man. Homo sapiens is a human. That's why you call it Homo, which means a man. So Homo habilis, the upright, the handyman. Homo erectus, the upright walking man. Homo sapien, the wise man. Those are, all of them are humans. That's why we are referring to modern humans. So please put the word modern humans. Homo sapiens, which means the wise man. I don't mean the school, I mean the man, you who is listening. Someone's going to ask me, what about us who are ladies? Yeah, is a man in science. All right. They're saying that name the family to which modern humans belong. They belong to a family called Hominidae. Hominidae. So they belong to a family called Hominidae. Yes, that's the family to which it belongs. They're saying that which genetic evidence is used to support the out of Africa hypothesis. We have two genetic evidences, but we only teach one. We have what called mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome. But now we don't talk about the we don't talk about the Y chromosome. Only now the syllabus or the curriculum is talking about the mitochondrial DNA. So the evidence we give you here is mitochondrial DNA. Describe how fossil evidence is used to support out of Africa hypothesis. I've been telling these kids that these are the same questions we ask you. And if you check the book, our book we use, you can download even yourself. That's exactly how we mark exactly. This is the same way how they ask you this question. This book was released a long time ago before even these papers are being set. All right, let me answer. You have to talk about the oldest fossils which were discovered in Africa. For example, you have to talk about that Adipithecus remedus was discovered in Africa. You have to talk about that Australopithecus. Among Australopithecus species, we have Lucy, that is Afarensis. We have Taum child, that's Africanus. Mrs. Place, Africanus. Little fruit, Africanus. Carabo, Sediba. Ne? All those Australopithecus species were discovered in Africa. Homo habilis, also in itself, was discovered in Africa. That is the handyman. Now, when you reach here, you add the word the oldest. The oldest species, the oldest fossil of Homo erectus and Homo sapien were also discovered in Africa. That's what you want. So you may not talk about all the Australopithecus species, all of them. You can just talk about one or two. So Adipithecus discovered in Africa. Australopithecus species discovered in Africa. For example, Taum child, Mrs. Place. Then you'd go to Homo habilis, discovered in Africa. Homo erectus, the oldest, Homo erectus and Homo sapien, discovered in Africa. Let me show you what I'm trying to say. This is what I'm trying to say. Evidence to support out of Africa hypothesis. There are three: the mitochondrial DNA, the cultural evidence, and the fossil evidence. This is what I'm trying to say. That fossils of Adipithecus were only found in Africa. Fossils of Australopithecus, e.g. Carabo, Little Fruit, Taum child, Mrs. Place, all were found in Africa. Homo habilis were only found in Africa. Oldest fossil of Homo erectus and Homo sapiens were discovered in Africa. This shows that modern humans originated from Africa and migrated to the rest of the world. You see that even I highlighted the key points which you need to know when you're writing in your exam. Yes. So as I'm winding up, I will recommend you to use this book. Go to our website, download it free of charge. If you want to be printed, that's a different story. But go use these resources. I took time to write this book, and I wrote it with care so that every child of this country in South Africa must pass. You don't have a right to fail. You have a right to pass. You must demand for your rights. What is your right? The right of passing. Please, never ever demand for the right of failure, because you have the ability for you to pass, not the ability for you to fail. I wish you the best. Make sure that you go through these papers. You will make it. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to others so that they also benefit in this before they write their final exam. Thank you very much. m.saidi as usual.